Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 124, we got a good lineup ahead of UFC Vegas 74. First up, we're going to be joined by Randy Couture to talk about Francis Ngannou signed with the PFL, everything PFL's been doing from Africa, Europe, going out to the Middle East to try to secure PFL Middle East, PFL Australia. They're doing obviously a ton. And really good chat about kind of how he thinks PFL has clearly became the second best promotion in North America. We also talked about Jake Paul, whether he will fight, but really good chat with Randy. We then talked to Jim Miller to preview his fight against Jared Gordon. He was supposed to fight Ludovic Klein. Klein fell out. He said a couple people turned it down. He ended up getting Jared Gordon, which is a fight he's really looking forward to. He wants to fight these vets, which Gordon is, and he knows it should be a very fun fight against Jared Gordon. And then we close things out talking to Daniel Pineda to preview his co-main event fight against Alex Caceres. Really intriguing fight. Obviously, Pineda talked about maybe retiring after the last one. Got the deal he wanted, and now he's fighting Caceres in the co-main event. Shout out to rank, guys. This is exactly what Daniel wants, and he's really looking forward to this one. He thinks he can finish Caceres and put on a really good performance. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by UFC Hall of Famer and PFL commentator Randy Couture. Randy, how's it going?
Doing good, Cole. How are you?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, a lot of big news in PFL, especially as of late. Like, for you that's been with PFL kind of since the beginning, like, what's it like for you to see like these top free agents now pick PFL and PFL get as big as it has?
And it's exciting. This brand and this promotion is exploding. Obviously, it seems as though we've moved into the number 2 spot in the U.S. market, which is really interesting. We just opened PFL Europe. Had our first 2 shows over there for that. Newcastle, which sold out immediately, just having a show in Berlin. So that is off and running, PFL Europe. Obviously headed to Saudi Arabia tomorrow to talk to the Saudis about PFL Middle East. Obviously, everybody knows we just signed Francis Ngannou for the pay-per-view model that's going to be rolling out next year. And they made him the chairman of PFL Africa. So this company is just exploding for all the right reasons, in my opinion. So, we just sat down with 5 gentlemen from Australia that are interested in PFL Australia. So there's a lot in the works with this organization right now. It's a fun time to be involved for sure.
When you kind of joined PFL, like, did you think this quickly, like it would be on ESPN, like it would be this global brand, and like, because it kind of seems like everything's happened so quick. Like, I like the PFL structure, but like even I was surprised like how quickly and how big it's kind of gotten.
Yeah, and I think part of that is people are a little disenchanted with what's going on in some of the other promotions, and we obviously attracted guys like Verdum and Anthony Pettis, and obviously Kayla Harrison is in many ways has been the face of the organization for quite a while now. So I think all those things are pluses. All those things got people's attention. Certainly the $1 million purse got a lot of people's attention early on, and then they backed that up with great fights, great fighters, a great format. Kayla coming out and doing all the things that she's done. So I think it all makes sense. I think they're treating and paying the fighters very, very well through the regular season. And then every one of those guys, obviously, that scores enough points is getting a shot at $1 million. 6 new millionaires walking out of that arena. That money talks. Let's just be honest. And that got a lot of people's attention. You look at what Francis just did, negotiating his opponent's purses. I mean, who's done that? Nobody. So, and a $2 million purse for those guys in the heavyweight division had to get a lot of people's attention. Would have got my attention. That's more money than I ever made in a single fight, for sure, in my entire career. So, I think we still have some growing room to do in this sport, but in many ways, the PFL is leading the charge there.
What do you think that says about Francis? Because like MMA is like a very selfish sport. Like it's why there isn't a union like we see in like the major sports. Like everyone kind of looks out for themselves.
Yeah, there's associations is something that we need. I think Francis is forward thinking. He was asking for some advocacy. It wasn't a money issue with the UFC. It was advocacy. He wanted a voice in regulatory process. He wanted a voice for himself and the other athletes who were fighting in that promotion. And that's what they weren't willing to give. They said, no, get out of here. They cut him. So that was one of the first things Pete Murray recognized and talked about Africa and developing talent and developing opportunity for athletes in Africa. And that immediately got Francis's attention. and I think he recognized he was dealing with a little bit different animal in the PFL. So I think that's probably what swung it our way and why he signed. And then to go forward and negotiate his opponent's purses and all that is just, I think it's just a remarkable thing. He's a amazing story, coming from Sierra Leone through Paris and making his way, literally living in his car and making it all the way to being the heavyweight champion of the world. I think it's an incredible story. So he's a very selfless human. And I think that part of that is what makes him such a great fighter as well. But he's thinking forward. We have most of us, the average span of your career is about 6 years. Obviously, some of us push that a little further, but for the average guy, it's about 6 years where you get a chance to be a professional athlete and make that kind of money. And Francis is looking forward. He knows he's not going to be able to fight forever. Now he's the chairman of PFL Africa. So when he fights his last fight, he's got that built-in purpose and where he's going after that. And he's going to be a part of the PFL for a long time and hopefully help us develop a lot of great talent and opportunity for a bunch of humans that live in Africa, which is pretty cool.
And then that $2 million for the opponent purse, like all of a sudden, like if I was a UFC or Bellator or heavyweight, like I'm trying to get out of my contract pretty quickly to get over, especially if you're like a relatively big name, one of those promotions. Like, how much do you think that's going to impact like heavyweight free agency now?
I guess we'll see, won't we? I mean, it's there. Everybody knows it. It's public knowledge. So it'll be interesting to see what some of these guys decide to do as we move and roll out this pay-per-view model in this next year. I think there's going to be a lot of free agents looking at that for sure.
How important do you think that first opponent and fight will be for Francis to like really kind of solidify that like this is a good level competition, like it is a tough challenge for Ngannou. It's not just going to be like an easy fight.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And, there's still a lot of chatter about boxing for Francis as well. And the PFL was willing to let him, kind of dip his toe in that water and see how that goes. I'm hoping that and I know he will be. I think he needs to be very smart about that. He can't pull a James Toney and think he's just going to jump right in at the highest level in boxing. They're apples and oranges in many, many ways. He spent 2 years shoring up his grappling and his wrestling to go out and beat Stipe. And now he wants to go back. And obviously, he's got the horsepower to knock anybody out, even in boxing. But the technical boxing is a different animal than boxing for MMA. And I think he needs to make sure he's doing his due diligence, working on those types of skills. And in many ways, I think he'd be playing catch up to operate at a high level in the boxing realm. So I hope he picks the right opponents if he does box. But I think he's got a bright future in MMA. He's got the work ethic, he's got the attitude, and he certainly has the athletic ability to continue to be very, very successful in mixed martial arts.
Do you have like anyone you would like to see be Ngannou's like MMA debut or not?
Well, I've been
Like,
saying, last year we saw Ante Delia, who when he came to the PFL was a highly touted signing and recruit. The UFC was chasing him, Bellator was chasing him, there were other folks chasing him, and he chose the PFL. And it didn't go very well for him right out of the gate. He ended up getting beat. But he made the adjustments with this format, with the regular season and everything he did. And last year he was our champ, and he did it in great style. He looked great. He's got a lot of amazing skills, obviously coming out of Croatia and Mirko Krokop's camp down there. And so, I mean, I would love to see him and Francis hook it up. I think that would be a great fight. They both bring some interesting skill sets to the cage. It would be, that would be a fun one to watch. So we'll see what happens. And I think that's the structure I think that we're seeing set up. The pay-per-view model is going to be the umbrella over the top of the PFL. The regular season is going to be, those champions are going to be feeding into that pay-per-view model. All these regional promotions now, we just opened PFL Europe. We've had our first 2 shows there with Newcastle and Berlin. Those regional, we're going to Saudi Arabia tomorrow to talk to the royal family there about PFL Middle East. I know there's interest in the PFL in Australia. I think there's also interest in the PFL in Latin America. So you're going to see those regional championships be the feeder for the regular season. And then over that, those champions are going to move up into the pay-per-view model. It makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think, we'll see the Challenger Series go away. We're using that to develop new talent now. We're getting a lot of amazing athletes coming through the Challenger Series in the last 2 years as well. So there's a lot of irons in the fire with this organization. They're exploding for sure.
And then just this past weekend, like when Dana was asked about Ngannou, he said like he didn't know much about it, and then went on like an 8-minute rant about
Yeah.
why it doesn't make any sense to him. Like, what you got to make of his comments?
I started watching it and I just turned it off. I did, and that's one of the things I like about Pete Murray and Don Davis. They're the ones that created this format and this organization, and they don't care what the other promotions are doing or what they think. They're focused on what they're doing, and they're doing things right. And it doesn't matter what the other promotions. We're different. The regular season format, a championship, a playoff and a championship every year is completely different than the WWE model or the prize fighting model that they claim that they're using. So I don't think it really matters, honestly. We're going to do what we do, and we're going to do it the best we can.
Do you wish like when you were fighting, like there was these options like PFL and Bellator? Because it seems like MMA free agency is like finally a real thing, and like other sports, like people love the off season for the free agency and all the moves, and it kind of seems like how big PFL and Bellator are getting, and like how kind of close they're getting to the UFC. It seems like free agency is like actually gonna be like a real thing in MMA.
Yeah, we didn't really have that opportunity. Obviously when I had my issues with the company, it was SEG first with a contract dispute that sent me to Japan, and I fought in several organizations in Japan for a little while there. I would have been all over this. I like the regularity of it. The most active I was the last 18 months of my career. I fought 5 times in those 18 months. I think as a younger man, I would have been all over this opportunity, and I see why a lot of fighters are gravitating towards the PFL.
I just talked to Shane Burgos too, and he kind of mentioned that when he signed, like a lot of guys reached out to him and kind of were talking about free agency because they never even thought about leaving the UFC. And like I imagine the same thing with Francis. Like how important do you think that is? We're like seeing these two guys, like a champion and like a top 10 guy, like leave the
Yeah.
UFC and show like they could go make more just as much money in another organization. Like how important do you think that is for PFL? Where now like other fighters can actually see like these top guys are willing to leave the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Verdum come over. We saw Anthony Pettis come over. We've had a lot of big names come over in previous seasons. And I certainly think there's a ripple effect to that. People start seeing where other athletes are going, where they're getting taken care of, how they're getting treated, how they're being paid. All those things factor in and get everybody's attention. I think the first thing that got everybody's attention was that first season and that $1 million purse. On the surface, that's what, that started the little ripple and the waves going out. And then they started seeing, getting paid on regular season all the way through, not just that $1 million purse dangling out there. They're being taken care of through the entire season. I think that attracted some more. And when, work begets work. You see some of these top guys like Burgos that come over, and obviously we're excited to see him maybe get back on track and really score some points and make it to the playoffs. I think we're all hoping that happens here in Atlanta for the next round of regular season fights. But he's an amazing and exciting fighter, and that gets everybody's attention. Now they're paying attention. They're going to watch and see how it goes for him, how it went for those other guys, and that sets the bar.
And then with like this season, like getting the points, like I know, like I like it where like it kind of promotes finishes and like these more exciting fights. Like for you working it, like do you enjoy that? Where like especially like in Burgos' case, like he's fighting a guy, they're both 0-1. They both kind of need that first or second round
Yeah,
knockout to like advance. Like it kind of makes these second fights a lot more interesting.
it does. It adds another layer to that onion. They're already interesting enough just in their style matchups and who's going to have their way and who's going to go out and impose their will. And then you add the scoring system and the points on top of that. You walk a fine line there between being reckless and trying to get a finish and score points and staying solid and fundamentally sound to get the W. So there's the balancing act that one more thing you have to mitigate when you sign up for a regular season, a playoff, and a championship.
Just a couple more things. Another signing you guys had was obviously Jake Paul, and like whenever I always see him kind of promoting PFL, like tweeting about Instagramming about it. Like I know he hasn't fought yet, but just kind of him like posting these videos and like these tweets about PFL, like how important do you think that has been, just kind of like getting to his audience where a lot of these guys might not have known what PFL is, because a lot of people just kind of know the 3 letters in the UFC.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. Look what they did with Kayla Harrison. They brought her in two years early, signed her to a contract before there even was a PFL. Let her get her feet under her. Let her figure out how to be a mixed martial artist and not just a judo gold medalist. They're doing the same thing with Clarissa Shields right now, who's a 2-time boxing gold medalist and world champion. And I think Jake is in that same boat. He's got to figure out what MMA is all about. Get the boxing thing, and he's been doing those trillers and those crossover matches, and he's been very selective in his opponents. And he's been poking Dana White in the chest about fighter pay, and that guys like Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren made more money from those boxing matches with him than they ever made in MMA. So he's been very vocal about that. And if it takes a guy like Jake Paul to shine a light on that, then I'm going to get behind Jake Paul every single time. All I want is that they throw him in, don't protect him. And we built a format that's built on meritocracy. You've got to go out and score points in that cage if you want to get to the playoff or you want to get to the championship. And I think that those same rules need to hold true for Jake Paul. He needs to go out there and score points and show that he's become a well-rounded mixed martial artist. And I think the PFL knows that too.
How do you think he will do in MMA? Like, obviously his boxing striking is very good. Like, he had that wrestling background, but that was years ago in high school. So who knows if he still has it. It's like, how do you think he will fare?
I think the fact that he had that foundation, that he wrestled, at the high school level, at least for a while, and has that foundation, that'll dust back off. And now he's got to figure out how to implement those skills that he has and get them into MMA, into an MMA format. That's the same thing I had to do. And obviously I had a lot more wrestling credentials than he's bringing in, but that's still what I had to do. I had to figure out how to implement my wrestling mindset and my wrestling tactics and technique into MMA situations. And he's going to be doing that same thing. How to implement his boxing, because pure boxing is a lot different than boxing and MMA. When somebody can kick you, somebody can elbow you, somebody can hang on to you and punch the hell out of you. That's a little bit different boxing than he's used to. So there's going to be a lot of adjustments here. I'm hoping that he's being diligent, getting to work, immersing himself in an MMA environment where he's training with some good people that are going to show him exactly where his weaknesses and his strengths are. And he starts showing up those weaknesses and become a well-rounded mixed martial artist.
Just last thing I want to touch on is obviously your career. Like, do you ever look back on like who you fought in like your kind of career? Like, you look back now and it's like kind of insane, like your run you had of opponents like Brock, Chuck, like kind of everyone you basically fought like every known like guy or champion from like your kind of time. You fought them all.
I mean, that's the way our sport is. If you want to be the best, you got to fight anybody they throw in front of you. And that was certainly my attitude about it. I never really shied away from anybody. In fact, I was happy to fight those guys. They forced me to do work. They forced me to solve those problems and figure those things out. And I think that's the beauty of mixed martial arts and the beauty of our sport. I feel like I had the good fortune to fight in that kind of golden era of our sport. There were only 8 shows a year. There weren't many promotions. I think that made it something very special. And I'm honored and happy to have been part of that journey through MMA. So.
Did you ever think MMA would get like this big when you were starting out doing it?
I think we were all worried that it was going to get trashed. You had, people like Senator McCain speaking out against the sport, calling it human cockfighting. And obviously he was connected to boxing and worried that we were going to overtake boxing in the pay-per-view market, which obviously, we didn't overtake them, but we're certainly challenging them as the combative sport for this generation. But, I think everybody was worried the sport was going to go away. They got us thrown off of People's Choice, the pay-per-view carrier at that time. The sport was struggling, which is ultimately what led SCG to selling it to Zuffa. Thankfully, Lorenzo Fertitta, who was the boxing commissioner in Nevada in '96 when the Ali Act was implemented, knew exactly what he was looking at. They were savvy. They were smart. They knew how to revamp this sport and grow it and make it mainstream. You have to give them credit for that. They did that. And I think the Ultimate Fighter, obviously that first season, changed the landscape of this sport for everybody. And they spent their last big chunk of change that they were going to use to promote the sport and it was successful. Thankfully, it was successful, and we're all still here. And now there's Bellator, and there's PFL, and there's all these other promotions, not just in the U.S. market but around the world that have flourished because of that.
Just final thing, like, is there still a moment that kind of sticks out above the rest for you in your career? Like, obviously you won titles, but like, is there a favorite memory from your career?
Man, fighting Tim Sylvia in Ohio.
Mm.
At that time, the biggest crowd in North America at about 22,000 people, and that crowd was just out of control that night. That last 10-second countdown in that 5-round fight, I'll never forget that. It still rings in my ears. And Tim was an amazing competitor and a friend. And at 44 years old, having that fight go the way it did, that was a special night.
Well, Randy, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having us on.
All right, we're jumping UFC lightweight Jim Miller, who's still fighting June 3rd, but a different opponent now. Jim, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. I reached out to Sean to try to fight like August or something like that, and he's like, what about end of May, early June? Well, why not? And in the last week we ran through a couple different guys, and we're able to get Gordon to hop in there, and this is the third fight in a row that in about 2 weeks before the fight I've had a new opponent, so it's nothing new at this point. So doing what I do, training hard, black eyes, busted lips, and all. So, the goal doesn't change.
Was there any ever thought of just let's postpone this little and get a full camp for a guy, especially after having back-to-back kind of short notice change-ups like this?
Yeah, not really. There was a little bit if Jared hadn't been able to take it, then I probably would have ended up waiting for Klein, because he ended up having to postpone it like a month or so. So for me, it's just like you never know what's going to happen, and I do have that goal to make UFC 300 be my 45th UFC fight. So fighting here in June really helps me, get ahead of that and try to be able to hit that mark.
Yeah, because this is what, 42 or
this is 42. Yeah.
Yeah, so like 300, I think is like I think it's, if they do a pay-per-view every month, I think it's April if I count it right. So like I guess 3 months or 3 fights from now till April, I guess is pretty doable for you then.
Yeah, they'll probably push it back to International Fight Week. I would imagine that's what they're going to end up doing. So that gives me a little bit more time, about 13 months. So yeah, it's I actually at the Newark card was talking to Shelby for a little bit, and I was telling him, I know that I could be conservative and get through this one and be like, hey, just put me on the UFC 300 card and I'll be there. But I didn't get to this point by being shy and and playing the conservative game. So I would like to continue to be aggressive and take these fights and fight it out at the pace that I want to fight it out at. And I know that every training camp and every fight is an opportunity to suffer an injury that could ruin my dream, and make that date impossible to hit. But honestly, at this point, it really doesn't matter. I hurt myself in December picking up a little piece of a wrapper in the kitchen, so it's it's not even it's not even the training or the fight, the fighting. It's those times where I'm not protected and I'm not ready for it that some of those injuries kind of just pop up.
Yeah, I actually do think that you said, I probably do think they don't do probably any pay-per-views. Like maybe they just do like a pay-per-view almost on ABC and like put a title on there, and because it makes the most sense to have 300 in July. Like it's kind of when their biggest events are. But so for you, like have you already kind of mapped out how it goes, like June, and then you kind of need 3 more, like, or is that just kind of taking it one step at a time?
Yeah, no, I really haven't mapped it out. Like I said, there's still a lot of fighting left. There's still a lot of time left in just day to day world, right? So my sights have been set on this date once I got it, and and we've had the opponent change and a little shuffling in there as well before Jared, but I don't look past this this opponent, and that type of attitude has gotten me to this point. So I'm not about to change that up at this stage in the game. I'm gonna continue to do that as long as it takes, and as hopefully that carries me through what I want to accomplish.
Were you surprised Jared did take it like only 2 months after that fight against Bobby, where I know it's no contest, but he did get knocked out just from that headbutt? Like, are you surprised he's coming back so soon?
I mean, yes and no, right? As a fighter, I know that you kind of want to get that bad taste out of your mouth. So any opportunity you can to get back into winning ways, you're gonna try to take. But then on the flip side, kind of his coaches and stuff like that, like the fact that it ended up being a no contest doesn't change what happened in the fight. And he did take a pretty good headbutt, so that's not my problem. So I'm going to go and try to exploit the fact that he probably wasn't in training as hard as he could be.
And just before we more get into Jared, like your last fight against Alex, like what do you take away from that one? Like you fought a pretty tough guy on only a few weeks' notice, and like put up a pretty good fight, like a competitive fight.
Takeaways are, it's just it's the fight game, and like I felt like I had him in trouble a lot more than he had me. I really never felt like I was in trouble in that fight. I took the eye poke, and that caused some swelling, and then there's a lot of scar tissue on both sides of my face. So when they're scoring blood and the swelling as much as they do, us older guys got to be careful with that. So I thought I had the closer opportunities to finish it, and I saw that there were quite a few media outlets that agree with my opinion. But that's honestly the way that it goes. It's why I fight every fight to take it out of the judge's hands. Why I will never be happy about winning a decision, because that's never my goal. So I would have liked to have been able to finish him, off the head kick, or one of the other times that I landed some good shots, or when I had his back. I wish I just had a little bit more energy, or rolled him to the side, was able to change up the angle on the choke a little bit, and then I would have been happy. But hearing that final bell, even if my name was called at the end, it wouldn't have been as satisfying as it would have been to finish him.
And I know you had that Alex fight before they kind of announced that Newark card, but were you surprised, like, if they had that plan, that they didn't put you on that card?
A little bit, but the cards come up super quick these days, and it seems like some of them are booked out like 8 months in advance, and then other ones it just kind of pops up, and it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to Newark. So it's it's cool fighting close to home, so that my family and friends and training partners, stuff like that, can come. But for me personally, it doesn't really matter. I'll fight anywhere that octagon's put up.
And then back to one fighting Jared, like what have you kind of made of his past couple of fights? Like obviously the Bobby fight was just kind of an unfortunate circumstance. Like I thought he beat Patty, like
Mm-hmm.
put up a good performance against Santos, and like before that Dawson like lost, like he was on a pretty nice run. Look, he was kind of making a run towards that top 15.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited for this fight. Jared's been around for a while, and back in the day, he fought a couple of my training partners. It's one of those fights that I kind of figured would happen eventually. And, I'm a fan of his. So that always gets me, it gets me a little more pumped up, and I really enjoy those types of fights where I've seen a guy fight and I appreciate the way he fights. It's tough sometimes when, there's so many fighters on the roster that sometimes I get a name and you're like, who? Like I got to do some research because I don't watch every card, but like a guy like Jared, it's cool to get the opportunity to share the octagon with him and looking to put on a show.
I know you fight whoever, like when we talked before, like the Gonzalez and Moda fight, like you were kind of happy to kind of derail some of their hype, but like, do you enjoy like fighting those prospects and kind of like showing them those levels, or do you or do you prefer like fighting these veterans and guys you kind of know a lot more?
Honestly, when it really comes down to it, it's just I like fighting.
Mm-hmm.
The fights against guys like Jared and Cowboy and like fighting Clay here in New Jersey was awesome. There's a guy that I could have fought him for like over a decade at the point we fought. We fought in 19. Like he was in the UFC a year or so before me, a year and a half before me. So that was another fight that like it just never happened. It never came up in the cards. There were probably some close opportunities when Joe Silva was going through the Rolodex back in the day, but to fight a guy that I'd seen watched and seen fight so many times and enjoyed watching, and for that one to be kind of at home was cool as hell. I was super pumped up walking out to that one. Like these fights against the guys that have been around for a bit and it's whether I fought like Cowboy, like getting that rematch, or the guys that I haven't fought yet. It is cool. It is really cool to share the octagon with him.
And then with Jared, like his last two fights, like ton of controversy with both of them, with the headbutt and then the Patty. Like I think most people thought he beat him. So like, what are you kind of expecting Jared to come out of this one? Like, are you expecting like a pretty aggressive like version, like especially if you're being like quote unquote robbed against Patty and like just kind of how that last fight ended?
I don't really know. That's honestly, that's not up for me to, that's not for me to just, figure out really. Like he could either come out and fight super aggressive or he could fight super conservative. With that feeling that, oh man, I need to get a win. Who knows? I been breaking him down, coaches breaking him down, figuring out where he's dangerous, where he's vulnerable. And, that's what we're going to go with. And whether there's, an extra little bit of pace behind it or aggression behind it. I've fought plenty of guys who came at me aggressively, and I've fought plenty of guys who are a little more tentative. So, that doesn't matter, to me. I'm just looking to exploit any weaknesses that I can find and and make it my kind of fight, because I know that if I make him fight a Jim Miller fight, that I'm going to come away the victor.
How do you kind of see it playing out? Like obviously Jared, a very good like wrestler, grinder, like his striking has gotten a lot better over the years, but like he has been knocked out before? Like, how do you kind of see it playing out?
Yeah, I expect that he's probably going to want to stay off the mat with me. So I'm gonna try to use my striking and make a mistake and in that heat of the moment, want to wrestle or whatever or set up my opportunity to take him down. Because I'm confident in my advantages on the ground. So however, it's really I don't like to try to get too much of a what exactly is going to happen, because man, sometimes you go out there and you rerun this thing in your head over and over and over again, and you're waiting for something to happen. So that's why I like to just try to get into that like groove, flow state, whatever you want to call it, and just start playing that elevator music and let the violence flow.
Do you really care, like, at this point where it's like you kind of just have that goal of 45 fights, UFC 300? Like, does it really matter like who's next or like what a win does for you? Because it's not like, I don't think, at least, like it's like you're on like a title run. It's more just like that 300 goal. So like, are these more just like just so you can fight and it doesn't really matter what it does to you in the division?
I think obviously, like the more I continue to win, the more it opens up any doors. I mean, at this point, I should be able to fight pretty much anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be like super planned, but I'm also the kind of guy that hops in on pretty quick notice. So, like wins give me more opportunities for great fights against great opponents.
Just two more things. Like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, after June, like we said, it's 3 fights to 45. Like, is it hopefully knock out maybe one or two of those and just have to do only one or two next year?
Yep, exactly. Maybe like November-ish, early December, something like that, and then March or so, and then have a couple months, and I'm pretty certain that they'll probably put 300 on that July card, so they'll give me that time and get that last one in.
300, like, no matter what, like, that's it for you, or can you see a scenario where you fight past that?
I mean, they start throwing out dollar signs. But honestly, I think I'm pretty confident that'll be it for MMA. There might still be some fire in me to compete in some other realms, but I don't know. It's not the years, it's the miles,
Mm-hmm.
So we've put on a lot of miles, a lot of training camps at the highest level in the world, which really takes a toll. So I think we get to 300 and there's no more little gloves for me.
Have they already like confirmed you'll be on 300? Like, I feel like there's no way they don't put you on it, but like, have Sean already said like as long as you're healthy, you're on the card?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. He said he's got me. We can we can make it work. So there's no like guarantees, but I'm pretty certain that if I'm healthy, I'll be on that card.
And just final thing, like UFC 300, like, is there an ideal opponent for you? Like, say Sean and Mick call you and say like whoever you want, like, we'll give it to you as long as they're ready.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think there are a lot of guys that I've got a ton of respect for, that I'd like to share the octagon with that last time. But I think it's just a matter of Like I want to get through that one like early next year, and then it'll just be like, hey, who wants to dance?
Mhm.
And then I'll be the one everybody's asking to prom. So and then I'll be able to figure that out. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I really honestly don't like doing that type of
Yeah.
stuff, because it's like, I don't like to look ahead, so that I really haven't at this point. It's like, I know that I can, I know that if I get that opportunity, like I said, if I'm healthy, that I'll have a great fight, and a great opponent to tip my hat.
Well, Jim, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, we're jumping UFC featherweight Daniel Pineda, who's, I guess, not retired and back in action. Daniel, how's it going, man?
Oh, brother.
Obviously, we talked after your last win, and that was the last bit of your deal. You said you were going to be retired unless the UFC gave you what you felt like you were going to be worth. So, like, how quickly did kind of a new deal come together then?
Yeah, they literally hit us up next day. They hit us up next day, and my manager started talking, and everything went good, and we got a 5-fight deal.
How happy are you with that then, to still be a UFC fighter, probably make it a good amount now too on a new contract? Like, how kind of happy are you with everything?
I'm more excited to go fight now.
Yeah. In a quick turnaround, like, did you expect to be fighting this soon after your last one?
No, I didn't, to be honest. I was getting ready to plan my daughter's birthday. That's like 4 weeks. So like I wasn't expecting to fight this soon, but we're here. Can't say no. A big fight like that.
And Alex Caceres, a ranked guy, like, how excited were you when you found out you'd be fighting him? Because this is one of the kind of like the OGs of the division.
Yeah, man. I was excited. He's been around for a long time. I mean, he pretty much almost started his career in the UFC, like I think he had like 5 fights or 6 fights and then went into the UFC, right? To the Ultimate Fighter, right? Fighter. And yeah, man, it's exciting to fight somebody like that, that's been fighting for so long in the UFC.
Yeah, like he has 27 UFC fights, which is insane to have, like, let alone that many fights as a pro, but that many fights in the UFC, which is crazy.
That's double the fights I have in the UFC. I got more fights than him, but he has more fights in the UFC. He has like double the UFC fights I do. So that's that says something, man. He's fought the best for a long time,
I guess the one kind of disappointment, I imagine, is just at the Apex, this event.
Yeah. When I heard that, that's the first thing I asked my manager. I was like, man, where's this fight at? Is it T-Mobile, MGM? He's like, not Apex. I'm like, fuck. I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. But he can't back out of a challenge, especially a ranked guy. Got to jump on those opportunities.
Right. Is that something, like, say it isn't Caceres, it's just another guy, an unranked guy? Like, is that something you maybe say no to and just ask the UFC to get you in front of fans?
I almost want to say yes. I would have just waited, but knowing me, I would have just fought, man. I've never said no to nobody, and like I said, first time I pulled out was like, what, that Lamar guy, I think that was his name. Pulled out of only one fight, and that was like, what the fuck is his name? I don't know. I pulled out of one fight.
With this one too, like, fighting so quick after, like, is that make camp and like the weight cut easier, or is it kind of just the same as it always is, so, like, just having to go right back into camp?
Like literally right after my fight, I took, what was it, almost 3 weeks off, man. I wasn't doing nothing. Like, I kind of banged up. I wasn't doing nothing. And as soon as the doctor cleared me, they're like, hey, man, you want to fight Alex? I'm like, let's do it. But no, I think it helps out that I'm fighting, because I like fighting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like being active. It keeps my weight low. I was walking at 168, so I wasn't a heavy, fat lard. You know what I'm saying? I was actually still in decent shape wise. I was skinny fat. So I was doing.
With Alex too, like everyone kind of knows him as this striker, like very kind of odd like movements and stuff, like, especially the way he knocked out Julian Erosa, like he throws a lot of odd kicks and stuff. So, like, how do you kind of prepare for that?
Gotta get ready for a war, man. You know, like he's not easy to take down. He's fast. He moves around a lot. So I mean, you know, just go in there and fight him. You know, push forward and fight the way I always do, man. I always push forward and see where it goes. You know. So
Is it the same kind of cast and crew you've been working with for this one, or do you bring in anyone different to prepare for Alex?
same one, same people, man. I got all different types of people in the gym at 4 ounce. We have southpaws, we have tall. I mean, we got a little bit of everything, you know. So I'll just sticking to 4 ounce, and it's a short camp, so I can't really go nowhere, you know. Had to do all my medicals, and that takes a long time. So
Uh, what have you made of Alex's like last couple fights? Like there was a point where he was like, I think like 2-5 or something, and people were talking about maybe him getting cut, and then he's gone like I think it's like 6 or 7-1 lately. Like he's been on a nice roll this late in his career.
yeah, man. Sometimes you catch that fire, man. That's what he's caught. You know, that's good. You know, he caught it at a good time, you know, because now he gets to meet me. You know, I'm kind of catching the same thing, you know. So I think it makes for an exciting fight. You know, we're both vets. We've been in there a long time, and I think it's gonna be a good fight. I'm excited.
I know, just always speaking to you, like you just love to fight anyone, but is it like adds something to it, like adds a bit of excitement, like fighting a known guy like Alex compared to some of these other guys you fought?
Yeah, especially because you know what I'm saying. Like people don't think that I deserve a top 15 guy, but I mean, top 15 or not, you know what I'm saying. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna fight, deserved or not. You know, you'll see. Like no matter what, it's not gonna be a boring fight. You know, do I deserve it? I think I do. I think I've been in the game long enough, you know, and I say yes to anybody that they throw in front of me. So why not?
Is that something you pride yourself on, of just like always being an exciting fighter? Like there's some guys that like just kind of do enough to get the win and like don't put themselves in danger, where like you, like no matter who you fight, no matter the style, like it's always going to be an exciting fight.
Yeah, man. That's pretty much, you know, how they say, you know, that's how Mexican fighters are. You know what I'm saying? We just push forward and try to keep our hands up and, you know, keep our chin down and keep going forward, man. We're exciting fighters, you know, and that's the way that I've been brought up my whole life. You know, even if it gets to the ground, I'm still gonna be punching in your face. I'm not just gonna hug you. And what do they call it? I'm gonna wrestle fuck you. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna get out of you. So yeah, man, that's exciting.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Because like Alex is a pretty durable guy. Like outside of submitting him, like he's a pretty tough guy to knock out.
Yeah, man. We're doing a lot of like jujitsu stuff. So I know his jiu-jitsu is better. He's a very good striker. It just pretty much depends on what he's gonna come with that day. You know, June 3rd. Whatever he comes forward with, that's gonna determine how we knocking him out or I'm gonna submit him. You know, it depends where he wants the fight to be. You know, can he stop my shot or can he stop? You know what I'm saying? Like my, you know, one of us is gonna shoot in. If I can't take him down, then I'm gonna knock him out. If he can't take me down, so I mean, I don't know. Like I know he's got good jits. You know, I feel like I got more power than him, but he is longer and fast. You know what I'm saying? So I just gotta get my hands on him.
You go out there and finish Alex. Like obviously you become the 15th guy, but like where do you think that does for you in this division?
What puts me in the 15th?
Yeah.
And all killers up there, man. So you know, I'm not gonna look past this guy. You know, I'm gonna go in there and I've been working on my cardio a lot, not to try to fucking die out, especially because he moves a lot in the first 2 rounds. But my goal is to finish him in the first 2 rounds. You know, I wanna stick to the finishing. I wanna have that 29 finish.
You get like you beat Alex, you become ranked. Like, what's that kind of mean for you? Because like after your UFC run, like 2013 or 14, whatever it was, like I imagine a lot of people were writing you off, like not thinking you were that good, and now to like come back and be a top 15 guy in the UFC, like what would that mean to you?
Man, that's there's only one goal right now, man, honestly, and it's to get the most submissions in the featherweight. You know what I'm saying? So give him 2 more, and then I'll be I'll be tied with Charles Oliveira. So you know what I'm saying? 3 more submissions and I'll be the number 1. So that's gonna be my goal right now. You know, that'll be my goal right now is try to submit somebody or just keep my finish rate up and finish everybody, man. But I'll be excited to be 15th, you know. But like I said, I gotta tell.
With being 15th too, like you kind of mentioned, all killers up there. So like, do you really care who it would be next, or is it just kind of anyone as long as it's in front of you after this one?
Pretty much, man, like I always been. It's whoever they put in front of me. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody I really want to fight. It's just like this guy wasn't picked. You know, he's just they throw me. I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. You know, I think they're like, you want a bigger contract? Okay, you can get top 15 guys. I'm down for that. You know, if the money's right, I'll fight anybody.
And 5-fight deal, like, do you think, would you imagine that those are probably the final 5 fights, or do you think you can just keep going? Like, because I know you mentioned retirement last time, or is it still just like, as long as you're winning, as long as you're getting paid, like, there's kind of no end in sight?
Long as you know what I'm saying. Let me win this 2 first fights. You know, my contract. Let's renegotiate this contract, and we'll see where it goes from that, man. Like I said, you know, just we'll go day by day. We'll go day by.
Just final thing then, like, what is the goal then for you this year?
This year is to finish Alex, and then maybe have one more fight before the end of the year.
In front of fans too.
Front of hands. Hopefully they come back to Houston or Texas, somewhere in Texas where I can have all my peoples in, you know. Like I said, they will travel. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
My peoples, but them tickets are crazy expensive, man. There's what, $1,600-$1,700 a ticket.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like, I don't know who's paying that.
They need to give me at least a couple, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
call my manager right now. God bless. Yeah, so no, man, I'm excited, man. I think June 3rd, it's gonna be a fucking exciting fight, and I'm excited.
Well, Daniel, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
See you June 3rd.